Listening in on that is UCT Public Law Head, Professor Cathy Powell. Thank you very much, Prof, for your time this morning. So the rule of law has been served, according to President Cyril Ramaphosa. There's politics and there's the law. Has the rule of law been served?
Yes and no, and good morning, Dudu. It's a good question because the letter of the law has been complied with. The spirit of the law has not. I don't think that this decision can be legally challenged because this time it's a remission of sentence being conferred by the President himself. And that's exercised under a different power from that which was used by Arthur Fraser when he gave Zuma medical parole. So when Arthur Fraser gave Zuma medical parole, acting as the prison's commissioner, he purported to use legislation, and it was easy to show that he hadn't actually applied that legislation on its own terms. So that could be overturned. But when Cyril Ramaphosa produced this mass remission of sentences for basically all prisoners, except for those falling into certain dangerous categories, he was using a power that is not controlled very much by the Constitution or by legislation. He has a very wide discretion. So it would be difficult to challenge that decision in court. But the reason I say that the rule of law has not been respected in spirit is because everybody can see that this particular remission of sentence was put in place on the day that Jacob Zuma turned up at Escort Prison and allowed him to leave within, I understand, 2 hours. So despite the apparent generality of this remission, there was clearly a secondary motive, which is getting Jacob Zuma out of prison as quickly as possible.
There's a point that you made about there's a legal, there's a party that is mulling legal action. And so yes. Do they have any prospect of success?
I don't think so. Look, when the president acts, there are still legal restrictions on his powers, but they're restrictions that set a much lower bar for him to meet before a court can declare that he's behaved lawfully. So when the president acts, he's got to act legally and lawfully. So got to respect the principle of legality, which means there's got to be a rule that lets him do what he's doing. And in this case, the rule is the Constitution itself. And in the second case, he's got to act rationally. And the test for rationality, I've heard various versions being offered in the past 24 hours. It's quite light. For the president to have acted rationally, all that needs to have happened is that he's done something that bears a rational connection with a legitimate government purpose. Now, a legitimate government purpose at that press conference, they want to reduce overcrowding in prisons. That's legitimate. What the president did was to produce a 12-month remission for a huge category of prisoners. That is rationally connected to solving overcrowding in prisons. So I think it's going to be very hard for a court to find that the president did not act according to the powers granted to him by the Constitution. Professor
Cathy Powell is with UCT's Public Law. She is the head of that department. Thank you very much for your time this morning.